So hi everyone again. So as promised, we're going to have a closer look on the PharmaLedger solution and what we have been developing so far. And for this presentation, Tom Giannaris from the business case would also help me to present the first part, but as well, João later on from the technical team will provide more details on that aspect. Next slide, please. So the agenda for this presentation is basically really having and put in the center the eRecruitment use cases and providing some background information about the solution concept, but also having the opportunity to show you a live demo and kind of guide you through the user experience and the flow of this application. And of course, the technical aspect will be mainly focused on the blockchain and open data sharing unit, which are the two types of technologies that this solution is actually using. And finally, we want to wrap this up with the stakeholder benefits. Next slide, please. And another one. Perfect, thank you. So it's great that we have covered so far different aspects of the clinical trial process, and we've heard a lot of opinions around it from different experts. So the links between available information about clinical trials and the potential trial participants are often missing or are broken, and sometimes it's further complicated by the fact that the available clinical trial information often sometimes lacks the utility to cover all the spectrum of the different patient groups. So what PharmaLedger is actually aimed to do is build a multi-stakeholder platform, which enables the different stakeholders within this clinical trial recruitment space, which of course are the patient, the providers, the sponsor, and the clinical site, to participate in an industry-wide patient trial matching utility service that aims to be unbiased and of course patient-centric. And to achieve that, we really want to create a neutral industry-wide utility to help patients and efficiently and successfully find clinical trial which match their health profiles and interests. Of course, this solution aims to be sponsor agnostic, and this is something that Tom kind of covered in previous presentation. And any patient or physician would have equal access to this matching utility. And finally, this would also will help and facilitate the clinical sites and points of care to receive high quality patient referral for their recruiting clinical trials. Next slide, please. And with that, I would like to also hand over to Tom to continue the presentation and give you more details on the PharmaLedger solution.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. I hope you can hear me well. So as we move forward in development of our platform, we realized and investigated the emerging trends that support enabling patient-centric recruitment, where we want subjects to find studies. So three very important trends. Number one, patients' access to health data is expanding. New tools are helping patients put their data to use. And as we've heard in so many presentations today, there is a willingness to participate in research. Next slide, please. So what are we trying to do? So the concept of this platform is to bring subjects to clinical trials. And it starts by sponsors being able to submit their trials directly on the platform. And the platform, as we've said, will remain neutral to any sponsor or researcher. So this would hopefully allow the patient to unlock the potential of patient-initiated approaches. So the trial discovery must be easier. So as we've said many times, we believe that a neutral sponsor-agnostic utility to help patients and their providers find clinical trials to match their trial needs would simplify trial discovery. Any sponsor and any patient would have equal access to the utility. and the identification of potential matches based on inputted pre-screening criteria would then be referred to clinical sites for further evaluation. Let's move to the next slide to highlight the user experience. Can you just build it one more? There we go. Just make it easy. So how does it work? And we'll see more of this in the live demo, but essentially the subject enters their medical information, their matching preferences like their location, and their permission to be matched. And they do it once, and they get matched to numerous trials. The pre-screening questions are patient appropriate, and the patient decides if they want to be referred to a clinical site, all based on trust enabling technology. So the key design principles, again, is that patients are in control of their data. Patients have increased visibility into how their data is used. The blockchain ledger maintains the trust. Redundant workflows are eliminated, and patient data privacy requirements are met. Next slide, please. So we heard a lot about why blockchain. Quite simply, we think that the blockchain technology is the best to ensure that the utility will provide the most trust. Patients want to share their data if they trust the utility. Sponsors will only share their clinical trials if they trust the utility, that it's fair and equitable, and that the entire basically the entire matching utility is based on a technology that we think fulfills the highest demands and expectations to protect privacy and security. Next slide, please. So yeah, so this is a short kind of screenshot of what you'll see more in the live version. But basically, the way it works is the patient sets their data sharing permissions first, then they enter their medical history, followed by their disease area questions, and finally trial-specific questions. At this point, the trial matching occurs, which produces potential trials a patient may be interested in to select and to participate in. And finally, the patient would confirm if they would like to be contacted by the clinical site from their match clinical trial. I think that's the last slide before Yao takes over. Yes, okay, very good.
Hello, I'm João. I am the lead developer of this solution. We have a team that sometimes goes up to 4 people, but usually I'm the lead guy who is here. I can ask if you can advance one slide, please. So in the end, you'll have access to these slides, or at least to the recording. So you don't need to take notice of all the URLs needed to play with this solution. You're all invited to come in and play. Possibly not now, but when you have time. And I will try to provide a demonstration starting with the patient's view. You have there on these slides URLs for the general landing page for demonstration. You have also for a technical details page, which contains users and codes so you can play around as a sponsor or as a clinical site. And also, you have access to the open source codes, which you can download and attempt to create an environment for yourself, if that's what you want. I will now share my screen and will live demonstrate the application. So screen number 2, share. I hope you're all receiving my screen. So you should be seeing a landing page which has in a box highlighting, say, patients, find trials now. So I'll start with the patient. You have functionality for sponsors, for clinical sites, and for physicians separated. I will start with the patient sign. And I will click the sign up button here. The first question you'll receive, especially if you're using the Chrome browser or the new Microsoft Edge browser, you'll see a question if you want to install this application. It doesn't matter what you answer, but if you answer yes, you'll get an icon installed on your mobile phone or on your desktop, so you can use the application as a local mobile application without the need to come to the site and remember the URL every time you want to come back. The application is in demonstration modes, which means it has a pre-filled credentials for you to log in. You just come here and log in, and you have a pre-created user for you to try out. For making a complete demonstration, I will sign up with a clean user, a new user entirely. And user number 15, João 15. I have to agree to the terms and conditions. This is mostly a template that should explain what you're agreeing to when you register here. And now this is important from a privacy point of view. I am not sending this data here to anywhere. This data here is needed to create me a wallet, and this wallet is owned by me. That's what's called a self-sovereign application. So if you ask the guys at pdmfc.com there, hey, which data do you have there? They cannot answer because they don't have this data. This data is private to the user and never leaves the device, never leaves the browser. And if you're using a mobile phone, it doesn't leave the mobile phone. So it's just your own private keys. And once I have registered, I can log in. I won't save, well, I might save it. And here I have my main screen. We can go and try to find a trial, but I also have a list here of previous trials I have contacted. It's empty. I haven't tried that. And so I start for the first time. Let's find a trial. I will have to answer four sets of questions. First, the first set of questions is about my personal health information. So this is not integrated with any official health record. So it was desired so that I import this from my government health record if it's available. So that's not done yet, but should be done one day. So I have to fill this out manually. So I'll give here my personal data. My browser already knows the answers, so it's suggesting. And if you notice, now there are some questions which have a yes, no answer. These answers are mandatory to answer. And some questions have yes, no, or not sure, prefer not to answer. So this third choice, not sure, means that I'm not willing to give up that information, to share that information. So I'll say, no, I don't have hepatitis B, I don't have hepatitis C, I don't want to say if I have HIV or not, and I don't have cardiac conditions. Now it goes on to the second set of questions. These are mostly about my location. If you're doing this for the first time, the browser will ask you, do you agree to share your current location for this with this site? I have answered that yes. So this is the coordinates of my house. And how many kilometers I'm willing to travel for a site. If this is an important disease, I don't matter. I'll travel the world around to find a cure for it. And this is based on a medical condition indication. So I have to say which kinds of medical condition am I looking for a trial. We have here on this test site several clinical trials that have been made up from previous indications from other sponsors. I'll choose here psoriatic arthritis in particular because I'm looking for a predefined response. And once I press next, the system will collect all the trials regarding psoriatic arthritis. There are 10 trials for this case, and present now a few questions specific to this medical condition. So for me to match any trial, I have to have a positive professional diagnostic of psoriatic arthritis, must have it for at least 6 months. I don't have psoriasis. And all of these things here, I pretend I don't even understand what they ask me all about these drugs, the MARDs, and I'll say I'm not sure, or I prefer not to answer. And I will step on to the next set of questions. The last set of questions, the system gathers all psoriatic arthritis trials and merges all the specific questions from all the trials available. I will answer yes to the first question. If you can read it, it says, am I a Chinese citizen? I will say yes, because I want to get a specific answer for one specific trial just for Chinese citizens. And most of the things here I can answer. Some of them I don't even know what they are, so I'll say I'm not sure or prefer not to answer. This will be important later for the match score. And then I actually submit my match requests. And there are only 10 trials for this condition. It will be very quick. It gives me a list of all available trials for psoriatic arthritis with a particular match confidence score. I will explain how the match confidence score works next. This match is sorted by distance. So it's giving me the ones that are near my home first, because I agreed to share my location previously. So it guesses that this one has a site near my home. So next one is in Madrid, and so far. So I will try to see details on the first trial. And before trying to contact the clinical sites, first let me explain here the matching of the trial. The criteria of the match, the 75% is computed based on these answers. My age is between 40 and 60 years. I'm not pregnant, and I'm not trying to get my wife pregnant. I'm not participating in other trials, and I didn't answer if I was taking this kind of drug. No, this is not the Chinese, sorry. Wrong trial. Let me go back to the trials I wanted. Yeah, I was looking for this one that matched if I was a Chinese patient, but I answered that I'm not taking any anti-rheumatic drugs or I don't have autoimmune disease. It decreases my confidence score because I did not answer. I answered not sure about these questions. So I have a lower confidence score. And below, it displays me the details of the trials, the name, the purpose, who is the sponsor, in which phase it's running. Do I have, how much time per week should I commit to participate in this trial? Do I get some help, monetary help for participating in this trial? In this case, there is travel stipends up to $3,500. And in which site is this trial running? So it's running on all these sites here. So one in America, one in the United Kingdom, and 4 here in Southern Europe. I can see these ones. So 3 in Madrid, 1 in Lisbon. And the sites are displayed here, sorted by distance. So this is the one near my house, and the other ones are further away, as an example. This map display is also open source. It's OpenStreetMap. So now, if I want, so far, I've matched a few trials, but I haven't shared any data with any site. So far, all this data, more or less, is not available to any clinical site and never to any sponsor. If I want to make my answers available to one particular clinical site, I must press here the Contact Clinical Site button. I will choose the one near my house, and it will ask me, do I authorize sharing this data here? So my username, my name, my email address, and the phone I can fill up with a phone number. And we'll also share my pre-screener answers with this clinical site. I authorize that. And only then, I have here a record that I have contacted this clinical site. Is this information available for that particular clinical site. So just for a quick demo, I'll go now for the clinical sites. I know this is the one that, and if I go to the psoriatic arthritis 5 trials, there is here my contact, just arrived now. This is the time on my computer here, so. And these are the details I've shared with the clinical site. So my name, email, a phone that I've answered. This is technical details regarding to the blockchain anchoring. We'll discuss that later if you want. And then an explanation of my match confidence. So all the answers I've gave are shown here. The ones that are relevant to match have here a comment that explains why this answer matched. And you may notice there's some yellow comments here. That means that these questions were not relevant for this match. So this information is missing. And remember that the 4th block, I had to answer several trial-specific questions. For this site, it only shows me the answers relevant to this particular trial. So the only answer here is if I was a Chinese citizen. So all the other trials, pre-screener answers are not shared with this particular trial. And so, in a nutshell, this is more or less the live demonstration. As a patient on my dashboard, I got a record that I've matched a few trials. I can see it again, and that I've contacted this trial for this particular sponsor on this date. So this is more or less for the live demonstration. I will now ask if you can go back and show slide 12 onwards. One more slide, please. Yes. So this is about the technology. The application you've seen is what's called a progressive web application. It means it can be installed on your mobile phone, but it does not need to be installed from the mobile stores. It's entirely open source, so you can come here to this site and download the source code yourself and try to set up a copy of these demonstration sites. The license allows it, so it's the MIT-based license. And this works both ways. So it also allows me to use other open source libraries for medical forms, OpenStreetMap, and whatsoever. Of course, this has also been funded by the European Union. Can we go on to the next slide? Okay, about patient data confidentiality. The patient data usually does not leave the sphere of ownership of what they call here the patient side. There's something that's called a wallet, technically, that holds the patient data, and that is only shared outside of the wallet in the way when I say, yes, I allow this data to be shared with one particular clinical site. The data is shared in 2 stages. First, the data is shared when I have to evaluate all my pre-screener answers and compare it to existing trials. At this stage, the patient is anonymous, so it is not known which patient is asking which questions. So it's just a technical match. And then there's a later stage when the patient authorized the contact of a particular site, then the full data is disclosed to that site, only then. In the future, this might even be improved. That's what there is here, an edge computing note at the bottom. So if we can make the match run entirely inside the mobile phone, then this data, the answers to this question do not even need to leave the mobile phone. But for now, we think this is a bit too aggressive and will kill the battery of our mobile phones quickly. So, so far, it's a technological issue. The matching of the questions is still done on a centralized server. And the idea is that the patient is in control of data. And whenever the patient shares the data with anyone, it should be in control that it allows such sharing to occur. Can we go on to the next slide? Now, what about blockchain and OpenDSU? So blockchain is fashionable, but there are some principles there which are important. And how are we using blockchain here? First, we are using blockchain using another technology called Open Data Sharing Units. That it's about self-sovereign applications. So people have been in ownership control of their data and allowing sharing of their data with other entities. That's what more or less data sharing units is about. So people own that data. That data is stored somewhere, but only the owner of that data has the keys to decrypt and modify or read that data. So interaction with the patient, giving my username, password, email, etc., is necessary to generate the key which allows me to decrypt that data. And if you later, can you go on to the next slide? So if you go to this site here on the top right, OpenDSU.com, you will find an explanation on how this technology attempts to keep the user in control of their own data, and also uses blockchain to record what you call technically anchoring data. So data is not stored on the blockchain itself. Data is stored off-chain, but on the blockchain, several codes are stored to make sure that no one can tamper with the data owned by the patient. So later on, and maybe if you want, if we have time, I can demo to see the real Go Quorum Ethereum running with this site while we make changes to the medical data. But that data is not available on Ethereum or Go Quorum. That data is only available to the patient. And so the blockchain itself can be private or public. It makes no difference because you cannot reverse engineer any patient data from the blockchain itself. What kind of blockchain technologies are we supporting now? So far, the technology OpenDSU supports 2 blockchains, the Ethereum blockchain using a Go Quorum technology server and the Hyperledger Fabric. So later, if you want to see one of these working, we have a Go Quorum working for this particular site. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Yes. So does this software privilege some particular sponsor or not? Well, no, this software is a bit agnostic in the way that it can be used. It can be used in the simplest way by a single sponsor or a single group of clinical sites, or we can try to collaborate together and make it work for many sponsors at the same time, many clinical sites, and even define governance mechanisms to welcome more sponsors, more clinical sites, and physicians. So the software can work in both ways. The decision on how to use the software is left to the people and not to the software. Can I go one more slide? So this is basically the decision here. So today you have here this other experience section, which shows every sponsor today has its own clinical trial application. A few of them have, some others don't have anything. And these are closed applications only for that sponsor in particular. We're trying to make a difference and offer another option in which you can have a clinical trial recruitment option for multiple sponsors, multiple sites, and physicians. And so I think this is the last slide.